When your child is tantruming, do you wonder when should you intervene and help them to calm down, and when should you just leave them to really feel their feelings? So my name's Jodie Thornton, and we're going to talk today about when not to intervene, when to intervene, and then what your intention, like what is it we're trying to do when we do intervene, because there's a few tricks and tips that we can go through in that space. So, our very first thing to say is that if your child is getting frustrated with their toys, or they're putting their shoes on, something that's going not the way they want it to, and that ends up in overwhelm. So whether that's just general frustration, whether it's yelling, tantruming, getting upset, any of those things, we want to recognize the times where we should not intervene. So the number one time is when you are emotionally overwhelmed yourself. So if you're frustrated, if you're cranky, if you're having a really hard day, you're exhausted, if there's any reason why you don't have any emotional capacity to really support them through their feelings, you're far better off just acknowledging their frustration and letting them handle it in however which way they handle it. So in theory, if we allow our children just to experiment with their feelings, like in theory, they will learn things along the way. Now, in some cases, they're just going to practice being upset and they're not actually going to learn much more. But it is still better for them to go through that experience than to have you try and help, but your fuse is so short because you don't have the emotional capacity that you end up reacting and you're adding fuel to the fire. Right, and so it's totally okay for you to say, I can see you're upset. I am too frustrated right now to help you. Right, and so you can see when I say that, I am not making any problem from the fact that they have big feelings. I'm not making it so that they shouldn't feel the way that they feel. I'm not saying that because they're upset, that's causing me a problem. And I'm not assigning responsibility for my frustration to their behavior. It may or may not be the cause of your behavior, but even if it is the cause, ultimately the deeper cause is that we weren't raised with emotional awareness, so we don't know how to handle our big feelings. It's not because our children are having an overwhelming moment that's actually causing us to be frustrated. So in either case, we're not assigning responsibility for our feelings. We're just acknowledging, I would like to help you, but I'm not capable of helping you right now. Right? And then if you can, take the time to deal with your frustration and be able to regulate and come and help. If you can't, it's okay to understand that there will be times where you're not able to help. You can unpack that with your child later. So that's our first time, is when you're emotionally overwhelmed, don't try and calm them down. The second time is when you legitimately don't have enough time. The dinner is cooking and it's going to burn if you don't pay attention to it. You're running late to somewhere where it does actually matter whether you get there on time or not. Or for some other reason, you legitimately don't have the time to stop and help. And for this, we're going to do exactly the same thing. It's just to explain, I'm so sorry you're so frustrated, sweetie. I really need to get us in the car because otherwise we're going to be late. Right? And it would be great if you can include some details around why it's important that you're not late. But don't worry too much about the words you use, especially if your child is overwhelmed and not taking it in anyways. But we're just acknowledging, again, it's not a problem that they're upset. It's not wrong that they're upset. Their feelings are not invalid. It's just that you're not able to help them right now because of the time pressure. So then when do we intervene and help? Every other time, right? And so you may say, well, I don't have time to help every single time my child's upset. Well, that actually comes back to one of the two things. One is you're emotionally overwhelmed because maybe you're trying to balance too many things at once, or maybe you don't have the time. It really does take you back to part one or part two, right? So if you're not in a position where you're not under time pressure and you're not emotionally overwhelmed, then we do have the space, right? We do have the space to help them. Now, the interesting thing is, what we want to do is be careful what we do help with when we intervene. So the number one thing we see with a lot of us is we try to solve the surface level problem for our child. And this is where you'll see some people saying, don't do things for your child that they can do for themselves, because you're getting in the way of their independence. Now, in this case, I actually think it's more helpful to look at it from a deeper perspective. This isn't about like every opportunity for independence has to be taken or else your child won't be independent. That's not how it works, right? We can learn skills at any age. We don't have to learn any particular skill at whatever age your child is at. We've got time. But the bigger question is the surface level reason what is causing your child to be overwhelmed? Because if we take the example of putting their shoes on, are they actually upset that the shoes are uncomfortable? Are they actually upset that they want to feel competent and they can't do it themselves? Are they actually upset that they don't want to be going where they have to go and so therefore they don't want to be wearing these shoes? Like, what is the actual reason? So if we come in and try and solve the surface level reason, like we help them put the shoes on, or we tell them how to put the shoes on, or we encourage them, you can do it. I know you can do it, buddy. I've seen you do it before. Like all of these things are not getting to the root cause. And so our job when we come in and help our child, when we intervene when they're having overwhelming feelings, our job is to help them get clear on what is the actual problem and what they want to do about it. So if they want to feel competent at putting their shoes on, you doing almost anything is not going to be helpful, right? Maybe they would like you to give them some tips, maybe they want you to remind them where the heel of the sock is, or maybe they want you to remind them a little bit about how to put the Velcro together. But ultimately, we're looking for what is the actual issue beneath the surface level issue, and what help does our child want in that moment, as opposed to we're coming in ready to quick, we're going to fix this problem so that we can move on and we don't have to be upset. So that's the first thing. Don't jump in and solve the surface level issue before you've understood the underlying issue. The second thing is, as we intervene, the purpose of helping our child through the tantrum. Now, obviously, there is a benefit to being there and supporting your child when they're overwhelmed. We definitely want our children to feel supported. We want them to feel like they're not alone in their feelings. And we want them to have the experience that when their feelings come up, they're not a crisis. There's just information for us, right? All of those things are definitely a reason to come and help your child whenever you can. But the real benefit to helping your child during a tantrum is to help them build the emotional awareness of what has happened so that they can then listen to those feelings when they're small before they become bigger and become overwhelming. And so that's like the real benefit of us jumping in. And so if that's the case where you're at, and so you would like to learn how to help your child do that, come and register for my Supporting Kids Through Tantrums webinar. In that webinar, I teach you how to use your body language, your word choice, and your tone of voice to help your child calm down enough so that you can figure out what really is the issue. And so this is helpful when you're not sure what the real reason that this is upsetting for them. It's underneath, because it's never really about the toys or the getting the shoes on or whatever. It's always about something deeper than that. And then the second part is, if you are struggling to get your child to be calm enough to actually talk through it, then this webinar will take you through the steps of what to do to help your child calm down, and then how to help them build that emotional awareness so that then the next time that they get stuck in a similar way, they actually understand their feelings, and as they build the skill, you will have shorter tantrums. You'll have fewer tantrums. The tantrums will be less intense because your child will be able to recognize what is it that they really need, and then they can either solve the problem themselves, or they can ask you for the specific kind of help that they want in order to solve that problem. So you can find that webinar at jodiethornton.com/tantrums. And if you have any questions at all about today's video, you can pop that through on to jodi@jodiethornton.com. And if you have any other questions that you would like some support with, please do pop that through. I'd really love to hear from you.